Same thing with men in women's sports. The president signed a very strong executive order, making it the policy of the United States federal government that there are only two sexes, male and female, and we are not going to tolerate biological men competing in sports or impeding in private spaces for women like myself or you. And we've seen states defy this federal order. You've seen the state of Maine, unfortunately, because of their liberal governor, who nobody in that state disagrees with, I will add, being from New England, I can attest to that. People are incredibly fed up with her trying to oppose this common sense message. You've seen young women who have had to go on television to plead with their governor, please stop letting men play against me in sports. We shouldn't live in a country where that even has to happen. The president deeply understands that. That's why he signed that EO. And when Maine decided not to follow it, the Department of Justice sued them. So anyone who disobeys federal law will be either prosecuted, sued, or say goodbye to your federal funding.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So despite Trump's executive orders, despite the fact that it's been made perfectly clear that this administration will not tolerate men competing in women's sports, we are still seeing universities defy the order. We are seeing states defy the order and continue to allow male athletes to compete in the women's categories. So the next question is, what is going to be done about it? Are these states going to lose their federal funding? Are these states going to face huge repercussions for allowing this to continue? This abuse, this injustice against women and girls to continue? Well, according to the Trump administration, according to the White House, they're not going to take this. There are going to be consequences for defying the executive order. Yes, the states can essentially do what they want. They have their own state laws. But when it comes at the expense of half the country, when it leads to the detriment of women and girls, something has to be done. So it's good to see that the Trump administration is cracking down on this, is ensuring that these states are held accountable. So the first to be made an example of is the University of Pennsylvania, UPenn. The Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights ruled that the University of Pennsylvania violated Title IX by allowing Lia, formerly William Thomas, to compete on the women's swimming team in 2022. One of the biggest stories of the year was seeing a 6'4" Lia Thomas, or Will Thomas, standing up there as NCAA national champion in the women's category, while the female athletes stood there, much shorter, much smaller than this person, stood there to the side, wondering what the heck is going on. OCR notified UPenn President J. Larry Jameson that the university's policies and practices violated Title IX by denying women equal opportunities, by permitting males to compete in women's intercollegiate athletics, and to occupy women-only intimate facilities, the department said in a press release. Like with the state of Maine, OCR is providing the university with 10 days to rectify the situation or face potential punishments. Maine has elected not to comply, and the federal government is suing the state. The department is demanding that the University of Pennsylvania, 1, issue a statement to the university community stating that the university will comply with Title IX in all of its athletic programs. Restore to all female athletes all individual athletic records, titles, honors, awards, or similar recognition for Division I swimming competitions misappropriated by male athletes competing in female categories. And 3, send a letter to each female athlete whose individual recognition is restored, expressing an apology on behalf of the university for allowing her educational experience in athletics to be marred by sex discrimination. Now that is absolutely brilliant. Not only are they seeking to punish this university for allowing it in the first place, but they're also seeking to restore what these female athletes lost, as much as it is possible to restore it. Unfortunately, it isn't possible to fully restore what was taken from them, the opportunities that were taken from them, the experience that they were denied, the experience of winning an NCAA championship, for example. So Outkick has reached out to UPenn to ask if the school plans to take the described actions or not. They did not immediately respond to our request. In the past, they have said that they have been complicit with NCAA, policies and they didn't do anything wrong. And they're worried about how this will harm transgender students, how this will harm certain communities within their college. They never speak about how it will harm women, though, how it will harm girls, and how it did harm women and girls. They never speak about that, though.
The University of Pennsylvania is firing back at the Trump administration after the president halted $175 million in research funding to the school.
It was used on things like drug screenings against deadly viruses, protections against chemical warfare, and quantum computing. University President J. Larry Jameson says the funding cut is tied to President Trump's executive order of keeping men out of women's sports. Now, back in 2022, transgender swimmer Lia Thomas won the NCAA individual title for UPenn. Jameson says his school was complying with NCAA policies as they existed at the time. He added UPenn now complies with the policies as they exist today.
The president signed an executive order. That order prohibited transgender women and girls from competing in female sports. That order also states that it is the country's policy to rescind all money from educational programs that deprive women and girls of fair athletic opportunities. Penn, you'll recall, made headlines about 3 years ago when a transgender student athlete, Lia Thomas, competed on the women's swim team. Thomas went on to become the first transgender woman to win an NCAA swimming championship. We spoke with a council member who notes that Penn is one of the wealthiest schools in the country with an endowment of more than $22 billion. But she says that a pause in federal funding could have serious implications.
Penn is the largest private employer in the city of Philadelphia. Penn is responsible for thousands and thousands of jobs in the city of Philadelphia that are held by my constituents and held more broadly. However, I go back to the point that although all of this is wrong, all of this is incredibly unfortunate, this is a time for the university to live up to its stated values of community, of diversity, of inclusion.
Now, we should also note that in Penn's statement, it also noted that the school has followed all the policies when it comes to their student athletes. Those rules are set by the NCAA as well as the Ivy Leagues.
So it's reported that UPenn received up to $1 billion in federal funding. It is a private college, but they do receive federal funds. And as you heard there, these funds are quite important. They're used for important research, and there are people relying on these funds. Craig Traynor, the acting assistant secretary for civil rights, said little girls who look up to Riley Gaines and Paula Scallon can find hope in today's action. The Trump administration will not allow male athletes to invade female private spaces or compete in female categories. UPenn has a choice to make. Do the right thing for its female students and come into full compliance with Title IX immediately, or continue to advance an extremist political project that violates federal anti-discrimination law and puts UPenn's federal funding at risk. And remember, these female athletes were subject to abuse. They were in the locker room with a 6'4" man who was fully intact, exposing everything to them. No girl should be put in that situation. You don't send your girls off to college to be in the locker room with a male athlete, to have to undress in front of a male athlete and witness a man in the locker room getting undressed. This is a situation that these girls did not consent to. They weren't even warned. They were given no warning, no courtesy heads up, nothing. And they were told that they have to accept it, or they're bigots. They were even told that they won't find a job in the future if they object to such a thing. They were even told that they have to go through re-education. Given all this information of LGBTQ advocates and information sources, or indoctrination as I would call it, and the locker rooms were opened up to all men. They made the lockers unisex without even informing these girls.
The people who were supposed to be ensuring our privacy, protecting us, failed on every front, and bare minimum did not tell us. So I immediately left the locker room. I immediately left and I went to one of the officials on the pool deck who, just one of the officials, and I went up to him and I said, I understand the guidelines for the meet, which was, at the time, it was only 12 months of hormone suppression. I said, I know that, but what are the guidelines for the locker room? And word for word, this is what he says. oh, we actually got around this by making the locker rooms unisex. So I'm like, okay, unisex. Okay, so this means that any man could have walked into our locker room. Any man, not just a self-identifying woman. Any man, a coach, an official, I guess a parent if they could be on the pool deck.
And without even a blink of an eye, they threw our rights to privacy as women entirely out of the window. And what we saw result from that was women who, rather than going into the locker room to undress, they found other outlets. I know there were several girls, several of my teammates even, who opted to change in the janitor's closet next to like dirty mops, as opposed to being exposed to a naked man and exploited to a naked man. So when they talk about inclusivity, what that really is exclusivity, and what they're excluding is women out of women's locker rooms.
And when you think about the messaging before he got to you, he was swimming with the UPenn swimmers on their team. And those girls had quietly tried to raise objections because they'd been going through this all season and were told they needed therapy to work on their bigotry.
They were told they were the problem. 16 of the girls signed on to an email to University of Pennsylvania. Some of these girls, even victims, previous victims, survivors of sexual assault. I know of one girl who was in a bathroom setting prior to going to college. And so this was understandably a very triggering and traumatic experience for her. And so 16 signed on to the school expressing their discomfort in the locker room, to which the school, I swear I have a screenshot of the email. The school responded back with, if you feel uncomfortable seeing male genitalia, here are some counseling resources that you should seek in an attempt to re-educate yourselves. They had to go to mandatory LGBTQ education meetings weekly to learn about how just by being cisgender, they were oppressing Lia Thomas. Their school even went as far as to tell these girls that if they did speak out and any harm whatsoever were to come towards Thomas's way, whether it was physical harm, mental harm, emotional harm, self-inflicted for that matter, they said, then understand you girls are solely responsible. And that would make you responsible for a potential death. And that would make you a murderer.
Oh my gosh.
And you don't want to be a murderer, do you? No, so I suggest you be kind and I suggest you be inclusive.
And that is the most egregious part of this story. And to stand by and say that that was okay, to act as if they did nothing wrong, is absolutely absurd. They should be at least apologizing to these women, taking accountability. I mean, there's a court case going on at the moment. Again, not looking good for UPenn. Paula Scallon reacted to the news. She said, I'm really excited about this ruling, but I'm curious if my alma mater will actually do anything about it. They have shown no interest in standing up for women, and they've had several years to apologize for the situation and have actively chosen not to. I have been waiting for them to apologize to me for years now, but I'm still doubtful I will ever get one. I am grateful to this administration for taking the steps to hold UPenn accountable. And overall, this is a win for female athletes around the country. And that says a lot about this college. Even your former students don't hold out much hope in receiving that apology, in the college doing the right thing. Even with the threat of losing federal funding looming, a former student can say they don't have much hope in this college actually getting some common sense for a change in doing what's right for women and girls. Very, very sad. Which is why if you lose your federal funding, I'm not going to have much sympathy. I'm not going to be surprised. It is what it is. And it has to happen in order for things to improve, in order for this to never happen again. So these schools that are in these states that are refusing to comply with the executive order, they have to face the consequences of these decisions. They have to be held accountable. And they have to be given the strong message that they are not allowed to go on discriminating against women and girls. Biological sex comes before your ideology. Biological sex comes before identity, gender identity. Everybody, whether male or female, have rights afforded to them on the basis of sex. And these schools that are in these states have no right to take that away. So this is good news, this is reassuring, but we need to start seeing it now with our own eyes, the consequences that these schools are going to face. And maybe, just maybe, they'll be forced to do the right thing. Let's wait and see. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.